Hi, it's Jason here from Fraser Valley Rose Farm. I thought for this project it might be appropriate to start from the end and circle back towards how I got there. This is the finished product here, my metal archways for my rose garden. They're 5 feet wide and from front to back almost that amount, 10 feet tall. Long and short of it is I couldn't find anything on the market commercially that I could just buy as a kit that would be quite this large or meet my needs for stability. So I had to build it myself out of bent metal tube, and I will show you how to do that. If you stand by, watch this video. My next scene should begin with how I started here. One of our winter projects this year is going to be replace these wooden garden arches going into our rose garden. And I'm going to step back a second here, but you can show that the garden arch itself has started to warp and become a little less stable under the pressure and the weight of the roses above it, as well as winter winds and that kind of thing really push this thing around. So it's become kind of an inappropriate structure for what we want to do here. We're going to be replacing it with a bent metal structure that I'm going to custom bend, and that should be a lot sturdier. It should be a lot larger, so it's going to be a little more in scale with the roses that are around it. To do that, what we're going to have to do is a couple of things that are technical to do with bending it and digging it and putting it together, which we will show you. But what we're also going to have to do is dig out some roses and either move them to different places or retrain them to the metal arch. There's the rose garden way back there, and I've come back to the house here underneath the back deck to start to gather some of my materials. And you may well be asking why I count a kitchen table amongst my materials for this project. I'll get back and make that clear in just a second, but first a word on the tubing. Now this is actually sold to me as the top rail of a chain link fence. You can see these ones here are already painted black. That's going to be the eventual color of our rose arbor. And these ones here, these four on this end here, are not painted, or we didn't buy them painted, because I'm going to bend those. And I kind of figure that if I'm bending them, that the paint would take some major damage anyway. So I'm not going to do that. So let me show you what I need the kitchen table for. This kitchen table is kind of beat up. It's the place where my kids would do painting and crafts, and it's all chewed up and destroyed. My wife tried to get rid of it on Craigslist and Facebook. No takers, and then I saw it lying around, and I figured, hey, that has a curved edge and a rail, and I betcha I could use that to make the bend in this tube. So I'm going to set that up now. Stand by while I get set up. This is the table, but I've taken it apart and mounted it up on a support for my house and turned it into a jig for bending the metal. And for you non-building types, of which I am one, a jig is just something that you use to as a shaper or as a shortcut for building a shape when you're fabricating something. So the curve of the table, is just approximately what I would like for an archway. I'm not going to get too fussy about it. Kind of matches what I had in mind. So what did I do? I took the legs off the table and I mounted it to the pole here. Across the bottom, and I should say actually measured to see that it is level. I used the straight side with the level to make sure that the top to bottom is level. Across the bottom here, I mounted some 2x4 sections. And happily, that bottom rim of the table is just about exactly 1 3/8, which is the diameter of the tube. So I didn't have to do anything much there to make it proper for holding on to the tube. All I did was I mounted the 2x4s, and across the bottom of this 2x4 here, I wedged one more in. The thing is that when I start bending this tube, and it's going to act as one big lever. And it's actually going to act with a ton of force, both on the 2x4s on the bottom and along this curve as I pull it upwards. In fact, it's going to act with so much force that I was concerned that it would break this ridge here. So that's why I've stuck another 2x4 piece here, drilled straight through into the support to add additional stability for when I'm making that turn up there. I'm going to pull it along this way and pull it back along this edge here. I'm hoping I'm getting the proper light to show you this. This top section I put in here is just for reference. It's not intended to take any part in the bending. It's just that when I pull the tube straight out this way, I want to be able to see when I've hit the right angle. So that's what I'm going to use for it there. Only one other small thing I had to modify on the table here. You can see that it had this little ornamental bit here sticking outwards, and those aren't really, they're just stapled in. So all I did on this side, so that it wouldn't mess with the curve that I'm trying to make, is I just knocked them back out and then knocked them in on the inside so that the curve isn't interrupted. All right, I think I'm ready to go here. The only thing I've added to the table there is on this side here, I just put a guide to show me that when I'm pulling the pipe up, that I'm not getting out of alignment with the edge of the table here. So let me start here. The other thing I did is on the pipe here, I went ahead and put a line. That line will line up on here with the line I drew on that, and that's because I want to have about 19.5 inches on either end, excluding there's a little insert on the far end there. So 19.5 excluding that. So what I'm going to do, this is the fun part, because this is the part I think could go the wrong way. Either I could start bending this and it could launch me into the neighbor's yard, or maybe the table will fly apart, or maybe the house will come down on my head. So yeah, let's give it a shot. It's actually taking a fair amount of force to move this. And I think what I might do now is switch ends. And again, just lining up my lines there. Line that up so I'm not out of alignment. Okay, that's got a good start for the bend. Switch it back one more time here. There we go. That bend is in. Do one more on the other side, just to make sure I place kind of an even bend in it. There we go. Now, you will note that didn't go all the way, like it sprung back. So, to try to correct that, now that I've got the basic bend in there, I'm just going to grab this here and pull it down a bit. All right, let's go see if this fits. Okay, the way these top rails are built, you can see on this black one here, there's a bit of a stem built in here. That's so they can lock together. So, go ahead and push that into there. On the other side, the stem is on this side of the arch. So, sticking that together there. And now, hopefully, you get an idea of what this thing is going to look like. And backing up a little bit here, you can see that it looks a little too long. Keeping in mind that I designed it with the intention of burying 3 to 4 feet on the bottom end of this thing. So hopefully it will be in scale once it gets up there, but that's the basics of bending the hoop. Back at the old rickety arches here, it's time to dig some things up, cut some things down, and make room for the new arches. And I'm going to have to dig some holes as well. So, just to give you an idea of my plans here, this rose here is called City of York. It's a beast. White blooming, very nice, but I'm not going to have it in this location again afterwards. It's just too rampant, and you can see up there, even for my new arches, it's going to be a bit large. So I'm going to take that one out. This plant here, Geranium macrorhizum, is it's got some grass in it, plus it's exactly in the spot where I have to dig a big hole. So that's going to go away. This shrub here is Buddleia xyriana. It's a yellow flowering Buddleia, and I like the shrub a lot. I like it for cut flowers, but I'm actually going to remove it for the purpose of this project entirely. I don't like the color as it goes into this garden. Over on this side, this is a boursault climber called Amethyst, and it's thornless, which is fantastic, and during the winter has these wonderfully colored stems. So it's a fantastic rose, but it blooms only once in the year, and it is also a bit large for this location. So that one I'm going to remove entirely. Down here, geranium again, that's going to be removed. I've got a rose over this side here sort of peeking its head out. I think that's far enough away from the action that I can leave it in place, and a matching shrub on this side. Oh, there you go. There's one of the flowers. I mean, it's December now, so excuse it if it's a little bit faded, but that one is going away. Now, walking through the garden here to the opposite side, I have another little arch. This one's a little straighter than the other one, but if I'm going to do one, I may as well do the other and get a matching set. So I've got similar problems on this side here, is that some things are in the way of the way I'm going to construct this. So this guy here is a climber called Altissimo. You can see the beautiful hips on that right now, going into the late season. I like this rose here. However, it might be a bit in the way of what I'm doing. So either I'm just going to trim it back real good and pull it aside, or tie it down and train it to the new one, or I'm going to dig it up and just move it over a couple of feet. On this side here, another rose that I'd like to keep in place, but between them I don't think I have the space to put in my new arch. So that one is, again, either going to be trained off to the side here, or I'm going to dig it up and move it over a little bit. No big shrubs to move on this side or to cut down on this side. So that will be my prep. The next thing you will see me do is probably very indelicately start hacking down plants. All right, this may be the least delicately you ever see me treat a plant. Probably go after some of these small stems with my little pruners here, but for the big stuff, I'm going to need the loppers. And for the even bigger stems here, I'll probably be going after them with the pruning saw here. So I'm going to be a few minutes taking this one down. I'm going to take all these basically down to the ground, and I'll catch up with you after that. Right. Behold all the destruction. Took down a couple of those big shrubs here and left litter all over the lawn. And I wanted to show you the condition of the roses as I cut them down. This one here, as you recall, was City of York. I cut that one nice and low. I'm going to dig that one out. My intent is to give it to a friend from the farmer's market who wanted to cover up an outbuilding. This archway did not come down without a fight. So I left pieces of the struggle behind, and it didn't come out in such great condition. This one here was Amethyst, that Borsalt climber, and I left a couple of nice long stems on that one. I'm going to move that to the front of the yard probably, and because it's thornless, it's going to go into the kids' play structure. So that one will just be moved within our yard. And let me take you to the other archway, which actually came down with much less of a fight. Down in one piece. It wasn't quite as entwined with all the stems. I want to show you the other two roses. This might be an indication, actually, if you're wondering how to cut down your climbing roses between seasons. You would normally do this work in the spring. You can see on this one here, I've chosen 4 nice big canes going up in the direction that I want, all kind of spaced out nicely there, and I can train those up onto the new trellis structure or the new archway. And last but not least, this one here is Polka. And again, I've left from left to right, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nice canes all spaced out, ready to go onto the new structure. The next step in this project is to dig holes, and I don't think I'm going to show you that part. My assumption is that you've seen people dig holes before, so I'll catch up again when we're ready to put the archway in. Down here I have one of the original pipes that I'm using, and what I've done is I've just cut them in half, almost, about a 5-foot length here, and I want to show you what I'm doing next here. I myself just cut it with this grinder here, and obviously you could use a hacksaw or any other method of cutting it. And what I've done here is I've crimped the ends. So you can see here, that's the end as I finished it, and I'll show you just briefly here how I did that. This isn't the thickest metal, so you can see here all I've done is I put it into a vice grip like this and just pinched it down to get it close to where I want it. Next thing I'm going to do, actually I'll take it out of the vice grip and then start recording again. So coming out of the vice grip here, you can see it's taken it down most of the way here, and just to finish the job, use a hammer and just knock it in the rest of the way. So that pinches it right down, and to finish it I have a wheel grinder here, and I just use that to pretty up the edges so that it ends up nice and neat like that. Alright, I wanted to take you through a couple of small things before I go on to assembling this thing. And I took some advice from somebody who knows a little more about building than I do. And he told me that if you're going to drill into a curved metal surface, you ought to start with a small drill bit. So I'll show you that here. And I guess the reason behind that is it'll be less likely to slip off of the surface if you go with a small drill bit. Start at a low speed. There we go. Now that isn't the size of my hole. What I'm actually trying to put through it is a carriage bolt about this size, which is like 5/16. So the eventual size of drill bit I have to go through that with is this one here. But if I start with a pilot hole this size, then I can step up from there. And give that a shot. There we go. And now the carriage bolt will fit in. I have a whole bunch of other posts to do that too, so that's going to take me some time. I want to show you one other thing here. Come over this way. Alright, you probably remember from the beginning of the video that I used two different types of tube. One that was painted already, and these ones here that I bent for the archways were not painted previously because I had to bend them and I was afraid the paint would chip off or break off when I did that. So that leaves me a step where I have to paint these, and also for the ends of the pipes that I cinched down to make those tabs, also the paint on those is broken quite significantly. So I'm going to have to paint this galvanized steel. Now to paint galvanized steel, just going straight off the directions from the internet here, you're supposed to use a water-based degreaser to clean off the grease coating that's on the stainless, on the galvanized surface. So that's what I'm doing now. I'll follow that by a light sanding, and then I'll be on to painting and assembly. Alright, you probably see we got some snow in the past couple of days here. I'm ready to try to assemble this thing. So as you can see, I've got the hoops here bent and painted. I also, on the ends that I crimped here, I've touched those up with paint as well. And so I'll show you what I'm doing to assemble this here. I've used a 2-inch carriage bolt. Bring that in here. And I'm just going to insert that from the bottom side here. So on the assembled structure, these cross beams will be on the outside, so that the end of the carriage bolt that's rounded will be facing the person walking through the arch. Washer, nut, and I'm not going to fully tighten these yet. I'm just going to tighten them enough to assemble it and put it in place, and I'll do my final tightening once I have it in place out in the field there. So that's the start of the assembly on this one. You can see one that's more or less fully assembled on this side over here. And next, let's just go out to the field and see what we've done with the base of it. Alright, I've done the same thing in the back here. I've taken the uprights, which, as you remember, is a piece that was never cut. This is just as it came from the factory, 10 feet long. And then I have the cross piece on here with the carriage bolt and nut. I've sunk those down into holes that I've dug that are approximately 3 feet deep. But here's the thing. If you took a step back and looked at this whole thing, you'd find that it's a little bit cockeyed. One end might be a little higher than the other, and the other side might not match for height. So what I'm going to end up doing here is using a level quite extensively for this part, and leveling here, leveling back here, leveling front to back, and working on that for a while until I know that every post in this is lined up. I'll also be measuring it to get the right measurement. In this case, it's 5 feet apart that it needs to be, and that's a bit of fussy work that I'm going to have to do here to just make sure that everything is all lined up before I cement the posts in and then start putting the arches on the top. Alright, just about ready for my final step here. I want to show you what progress I'd made in straightening this up and evening this up here. And see by the bubble level here that I'm level from side to side. I'm also level this way here from front to back, and level going vertically as well. So given that I made it level, I also knocked these posts down from the bottoms of the hole. You remember the holes I dug were about 3 feet deep. I knocked them down into the clay by another 6 to 8 inches, and then used that, just pounded it down until it was all level from side to side. And I've also sunk them into some concrete at the bottom. So I've poured some concrete and then stabilized it with the soil here. And I've already can see that this is quite stable. I'm just trying to push on it now, and there's only a little bit of sway due to the flexibility of the metal, but overall the structure is very, very stable. So it's a big improvement on the old wooden structure that I had here, and I guess I'm ready for the next step, which is placing the arches on the top. All right, final step here. We got to put the arch on the top of this frame here. My father came over for a visit, and so unbeknownst to him, I've recruited him to help me with this step here. So here we go. I knew you would the outside. Works. All right, stick it in on this corner here. There we go. And over here, and now I'm going to come around your side. Finished. As you can see, it's quite a bit larger and sturdier than the frame I left behind. Some of the roses I'm going to grow on this will easily grow to 12 to 15 feet, so this is much more suitable. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions about the process of building this thing, leave them in the comments below.